Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue sur Irwin's French Class. Aujourd'hui, dans cette vidéo, nous allons finir notre série sur les verbes pronominaux. Pour finir en beauté, we are going to look at how to use and conjugate pronominal verbs in the passé composé and see what happens with their past participle. C'est parti. Pronominal verbs are conjugated in compound tenses like the passé composé or the plus que parfait using the auxiliary être, and that's the first rule that we are going to learn together in this video. So the auxiliary être is used with the Dr. and Mrs. van der Trump verbs and also with all the pronominal verbs. In this video, for clarity, we are going to use only the passé composé in our examples. So the passé composé of pronominal verbs is formed as follows. Subject, then the reflexive pronoun, then the present of être, the auxiliary, and then the past participle. For example, je me suis lavé. Il s'est réveillé. And the ne and pas of the negation surround the auxiliary and the reflexive pronoun. For example, je ne me suis pas lavé. Il ne s'est pas réveillé. Now let's explore together the agreement of the past participle. Well, the rule you absolutely need to remember with pronominal verbs is that the past participle agrees with the reflexive pronoun and not directly with the subject, as we learned for the Dr. and Mrs. van der Trump verbs. It doesn't stop here. That would be too easy. The past participle agrees with the reflexive pronoun, I repeat, but only if it is the direct object complement. For example, elle s'est lavée. I need to add an extra e to the past participle because it agrees in gender and number with the reflexive pronoun s apostrophe, since it is in this sentence the COD. Who did she wash? Herself. That's the direct object complement. Now look at what happens when I add something that she washed. For example, elle s'est lavé les mains. The extra e has been removed because there is no agreement. In this sentence, the COD is now les mains. What did she wash? Her hands. The S apostrophe is no longer the COD. It is in fact a COI, an indirect object complement. Whose hands did she wash? Hers. Therefore, there is no agreement to make. On the bright side, agreement will be done most of the time, whether we deal with reflexive verbs, like for example, nous nous sommes habillés rapidement, and S needs to be added here to the past participle because there is an agreement with the reflexive pronoun nous, that is the COD, in that sentence. Who did we get dressed? Ourselves. Same for essentially pronominal verbs. For example, ils se sont évadés de la prison. S, because there is an agreement with se, that is the COD in that sentence again. Elles se sont fiées à leur instinct. You need to add an extra E and an extra S because there is an agreement with se, which is again the COD in that sentence. Same goes for the passive reflexive verbs. For example, le latin et le sumérien se sont parlés dans beaucoup de régions du monde. And here you need to add an extra S to parler because there is an agreement with se, which is the direct object complement in that sentence. And se refers to le latin and le sumérien all together, plural and masculine. So only two cases really where the agreement will not be done. The one we exposed earlier when using a reflexive verb with an object complement. Like for example, ils se sont brossés les dents. Here the COD is les dents. Ils se sont brossés quoi? Les dents. Therefore, there is no agreement because ce here is not the COD. So there is no agreement to be made here. Same goes for elles se sont maquillées. If I had to keep the sentence like that, I will have to put ES. Elles se sont maquillées with E and S at the end. But since I add les yeux afterwards, les yeux then becomes the COD and there is no longer agreement. Elle s'est mouché le nez. No agreement. Ils se sont rasé la moustache. Again, no agreement here. The second and last case is with many of the reciprocal verbs. For example, ils se sont téléphonés. You see here at the end of téléphoner, there is nothing, there is no agreement. And because ce is not the direct, but the indirect object. Ils ont téléphoné à qui? À l'un l'autre, to each other. Same goes for elles se sont parlé. They spoke to each other. So among the reciprocal verbs we covered in our last video, be careful with those used with a preposition to introduce people. S'acheter, céder, se dire, s'écrire, s'envoyer, se mentir, se parler, se plaire, se poser des questions, se ressembler, se téléphoner. All right, now let's do an activity to revise and practice. All you need to do is conjugate the pronominal verbs in brackets in the passé composé. And of course, be careful with the potential agreement. Let's do the number one. Il se lever is the verb you need to conjugate in the passé composé. Il se lever tôt. Okay, let's do it. Il se, that would be your reflexive pronoun, yes. Il se, auxiliary être. Ils se sont levés. Do you do the agreement here? Yes, okay, that's a reflexive verb. You need to do the agreement with se, that is the COD in that sentence. Ils se sont levés with an S at the end. Numéro 2, elle se lavait à 7 heures. Okay, let's do it. Elle, reflexive pronoun, se, être, the auxiliary, elle s'est, S apostrophe et, elle s'est lavée à 7 heures. Do you need to do the agreement? Yes, you need to add an extra E over here. So she washed herself. That's the COD over here. Next, number 3. Elle se lavait, same verb, les mains à 7 heures. Okay, we added les mains in that sentence. So les mains becomes the COD. She washed what? Her hands. Whose hands? Hers. So the se here is a COI. Okay, so that's the indirect object complement. There is no agreement to make here. Elle s'est lavé les mains. So the E that you put in the number 2, you need to remove it for that sentence just because we added les mains. We added an extra object here. Numéro 4. Nous se parler is the verb you need to conjugate hier. Nous, so first let's put together the conjugation. Nous, reflexive pronoun for nous is nous, nous sommes, okay, the verb être, nous sommes parlé hier. So now, do you need to do the agreement? Do you need a preposition to introduce people with that verb? Parler à quelqu'un. Yes, you do. Therefore, your reflexive pronoun nous is going to be an indirect object complement. Therefore, there is no agreement. Nous sommes parlé, there is no S here at the end. Numéro 5. Ils se rencontraient au collège. So same here. is se rencontrer used with a preposition to introduce people? No, here there is no preposition. Therefore, your se, okay, your reflexive pronoun is going to be a direct object complement. Ils se sont rencontrés. You need to add an S here at the end. Numéro 6, elle s'écrire de longues lettres. S'écrire, okay, again, reciprocal verb. Do you need to use a preposition to introduce people? In French, yes. Écrire à quelqu'un. Therefore, your S apostrophe is not going to be a COD, it's going to be a COE. Therefore, no agreement. Elle se, sorry, I said S apostrophe, it's actually se. Elles se sont écrits. So you don't need to do the agreement here. Voilà les amis, c'est tout pour cette vidéo et pour cette série sur les verbes pronominaux. I hope these videos were useful and helpful for you to better understand these complicated verbs in French. If so, ajoutez un pouce bleu et abonnez-vous à ma chaîne pour me soutenir. Au revoir, à plus, ciao.